My son-in-law, David, left his cell phone behind at my house. When it rang, the screen lit up with a photograph of my wife, Eleanor, who had passed away 5 years prior. Seeing the message that came with it made my heart nearly seize in my chest. The morning light streamed through the antique lace curtains in my kitchen, painting delicate mosaics on the old wooden table where Eleanor and I had shared our morning coffee for 47 years. It had been 5 years since her funeral, but I still found myself pouring 2 cups out of habit before the painful memory would resurface. They say old routines are the hardest to break. At 70, I had come to understand that sorrow doesn't truly diminish. It just arranges itself into the permanent furniture of your soul. I was at the sink washing those 2 mugs, my hands deep in the warm, sudsy water, when I heard a distinct buzzing sound. I first dismissed it as a bee trapped against a window pane, a common occurrence in late autumn here in the Vermont countryside as insects sought shelter from the coming cold. But the vibration came again, a persistent, electronic hum. It was a phone vibrating on the wooden sideboard by the entrance. "Hello," I called out, wiping my hands on my apron. "Anyone leave something behind?" The only response was silence. My son-in-law, David, had departed just 20 minutes before, following our regular Tuesday morning visit. He came by each week, claiming it was to check on me, but I always suspected it was more about keeping up appearances than any real concern. David was always meticulously put together, a man who seemed to organize his life with flawless precision. The phone buzzed once more. I walked over to the sideboard, my old knees complaining with each step. The device was face up, its screen glowing, and the sight of it stole the air from my lungs. Eleanor's face was smiling at me from the screen. It wasn't a picture I'd ever seen before. She was wearing a lovely green blouse I didn't recognize, standing in a place I couldn't place. Her smile was wider and more radiant than I had seen it in the years leading up to her death. The image was an alert for an incoming text. My hand shook as I reached for the phone. A voice in my head told me not to look, that it was an invasion of privacy, a boundary I had always respected. But that was my wife's face, my deceased wife, looking younger and more vibrant than she had in those final, difficult years. Below her picture, I could see a preview of the message. "Asterisk Tuesday again, same time. I'm counting the seconds until I can hold you again, star." The room seemed to sway. I gripped the sideboard to steady myself, David's phone still in my other hand. The words swam before my eyes, refusing to form a coherent thought. Tuesday, same time. Counting the seconds, this wasn't an old message. The timestamp was from just a few minutes ago. Someone was sending text to David, using Eleanor's photograph. Someone who met him on Tuesdays. My thoughts raced, each possibility more disturbing than the last. Was it some kind of cruel prank? Who would do something so twisted? And why use Eleanor's picture? I knew I should put the phone down and call David, but instead, my fingers moved to unlock the screen. I'd seen him type in his passcode many times. It was my granddaughter Sophie's birthday. For simple digits, the phone opened. With a trembling hand, I navigated to his messages. The contact was saved simply as E. The message thread stretched back for months, maybe even years. I scrolled up, watching the dates fly by. Asterisk can't wait for tomorrow. Wear that blue shirt. I like asterisk asterisk thank you for last night. You make me feel alive asterisk asterisk your wife doesn't suspect a thing. We're safe asterisk your wife. My daughter, Clara, David's wife of 15 years, the mother of my granddaughter, the girl who had helped Eleanor in the garden when she was just a teenager. I collapsed into the chair by the door, a hand-carved piece Eleanor had given me for our anniversary. The phone felt searing hot in my palm, burning with a truth I never wanted to uncover. The older messages were about careful planning. Asterisk same place as always. The farm is perfect. He never suspects asterisk asterisk make sure the old man doesn't see us. He's more observant than he seems asterisk the old man. Me. They had been meeting here in my home, right under my roof. I scrolled further, my heart pounding a frantic rhythm against my ribs. And then I saw it. A message that stopped my world. Asterisk, I still have some of her clothes at the cabin. Should I get rid of them, or do you want them as souvenirs? Asterisk her clothes. Eleanor's. The reply from David, dated 3 months after Eleanor's funeral, was chilling. Asterisk, keep them. I like sleeping in her sweaters. They smell like her. Like us. Like those afternoons when Arthur thought she was at her sister's house star. The phone fell from my numb fingers, clattering onto the hardwood floor. This couldn't be happening. Eleanor and David. My wife and my son-in-law. It was a monstrous, obscene betrayal of everything I held sacred about my life, my marriage, and my family. But the evidence was glowing on the screen, irrefutable. How long had this been going on? Those Tuesday afternoons when Eleanor claimed she was visiting her sister Georgia in Burlington. Had she been with David instead? Georgia had passed away 2 years ago, taking with her any chance of confirming the lie. I picked up the phone, forcing myself to look for more. There were pictures, dozens of them, hidden away in a folder. Eleanor and David together. Eleanor's arm around his waist, David kissing her cheek. My own farmhouse was visible in the background of several photos. My porch, my garden, my bedroom window, they had been here together in my home. One photo showed them my barn, David wearing one of Eleanor's old gardening sweaters, laughing. The date stamp was from 5 months before Eleanor's heart attack. 5 months before I sat by her hospital bed, holding her hand, telling her I loved her. Had she been thinking of him in her last moments? A new message popped up, making me jump. Asterisk, did you forget your phone? Clara just called my cell asking where you were. I told her you were probably running errands. Get your phone and call her back before she gets worried. The asterisk, the mysterious sender, was still using Eleanor's photo. But Eleanor was dead. So who was he? As my heart shattered, my mind tried to piece together the puzzle. Someone was continuing Eleanor's affair with David. Someone who knew everything. Someone with access to her photos, her clothes, her secrets. I heard a car pull into the driveway. It was David's sedan. He was back for his phone. I had seconds to decide. Confront him now, armed only with shock and heartbreak, or remain silent, gather more information, and understand the full depth of this treachery. The doorbell rang. I glanced at the phone, then at the door. Another message appeared on the screen. Asterisk, I love you. See you tonight. Same cabin. I'll bring the wine, asterisk the cabin. More secrets. I made my choice. Coming. I called out, my voice surprisingly firm. I slipped David's phone into my pocket, grabbed a towel from the counter, and opened the door with a placid smile. David, my boy, did you forget something? He stood on the porch, perfectly composed as always. But I could see something different in his eyes now, a flicker of calculation I'd never noticed before. My phone, he said with a charming smile. I'm so forgetful today. Is it here? I haven't seen it. I lied smoothly, the ease of it surprising me. But come in. Help me look, as he stepped past me, his familiar cologne filling the air. The same scent I'd sometimes noticed on Eleanor's clothes in those final years. I felt a change within myself. The grieving husband was gone. In his place was someone colder, sharper, someone who would unearth every last secret, no matter the cost. Someone who would make them pay. Let's check the kitchen, I said pleasantly, closing the door. I'm sure it'll turn up, but the phone stayed warm in my pocket, a ticking bomb of secrets that would demolish my family. And I was determined to discover every single one. David searched my kitchen with an intensity that suggested he was looking for more than just a phone. He checked drawers, looked behind appliances, even glanced inside the old cookie jar. I watched him, my hand casually in my pocket, my fingers wrapped around his device. That's so odd, he said, feigning a worried look. I was sure I left it on the sideboard. Perhaps you took it out to the car with you, I suggested, my voice light and helpful, playing the part of the concerned father-in-law. Maybe, he replied, though he didn't seem convinced. His eyes scanned the room again, and I saw his gaze linger for a moment on my pocket. He suspects, I thought. Well, I should get going, David said finally, his smile strained. Clara wants me home for lunch. If it turns up, I'll call you immediately, I promised. After he drove off, I stood at the window until his car was out of sight. Then I pulled out the phone and sank into Eleanor's armchair, my hands trembling as I resumed my reading. The message thread confirmed 4 years of deceit, of clandestine meetings where my wife and son-in-law betrayed my daughter and me. The initial messages were cautious, but they soon evolved, becoming passionate and intimate. Eleanor had written things to David I hadn't known she was still capable of feeling. Asterisk, you make me feel seen again. Arthur looks at me like I'm already a ghost. Asterisk, that one stung more than the rest. Had I made her feel that way? Had I stopped truly seeing her? But it was no excuse for this. I found more references to the cabin, a place Eleanor had supposedly inherited from an aunt and sold years ago, or so she had told me. Digging deeper, I found GPS coordinates embedded in a photo's metadata. I entered them into my own phone. It was near Lake Champlain, about a 40-minute drive north. Close enough for secret afternoons. But I still didn't know who was now texting as E, the person who had seamlessly stepped into Eleanor's role. My own phone rang, startling me. It was my daughter, Clara. "Hi, Dad." I answered, forcing a note of normalcy into my voice. "Dad, have you seen David?" "He's not answering his phone." "Because his phone is in my pocket," I thought. "He was here this morning, but he left a while ago. Maybe his battery died." "Maybe," she said, sounding stressed. "Listen, I need to talk to you about something. Can I come over tonight?" My heart hammered. "Of course. Is everything okay?" After a long pause, she said, "We'll talk later." "Love you, Dad." She hung up. Claire wanted to talk. Did she know something? I needed answers, and I needed them quickly. But investigating my own family was a delicate matter. One wrong move, and they would close ranks, destroy evidence, and paint me as a confused old man. I had to be careful. I spent the afternoon forming a plan. First, I secured the evidence. I connected David's phone to my laptop and backed up everything. Messages, photos, call logs. I saved a copy to a flash drive and hid it inside a hollowed-out book on my shelf, one of Eleanor's old gardening manuals no one would ever open. Then I focused on the identity of the new E. I reread the recent messages. The sender was female. The language made that clear. She knew about the affair in intimate detail. The new messages had started just 2 months after Eleanor's funeral. Asterisk, I can give you everything she couldn't. I'm younger, stronger, and I won't die on you. Asterisk, the cruelty was breathtaking. It also told me the sender knew Eleanor had been sick. My mind raced through possibilities. Then I found an old message from Eleanor to David. Asterisk, Tessa keeps asking questions about where I go on Tuesdays. I think she's following me. We need to be more careful. Asterisk, Tessa. E. Eleanor's niece. My niece by marriage. I sat back, the implications washing over me. Tessa was 38, married with children. After her mother Georgia died, Tessa had handled the estate. Had she found evidence of the affair then? Or had she known all along? The front door opened without a knock. Only Clara had a key. I barely had time to slide David's phone under a cushion before she appeared in the doorway. She looked exhausted, pale, and worried. "Clara? What's wrong?" She sank into a chair, burying her face in her hands. "Dad, I think David's having an affair." The bitter irony was overwhelming. I kept my expression neutral. "What makes you say that? He's been so distant. He disappears on Tuesdays, says he's at the gym or running errands, but I checked our bank statements. No gym charges, no unusual receipts on Tuesdays." She looked up at me, her eyes filled with pain. "Am I going crazy? Am I just being paranoid?" "No," I said quietly. "You're not." She stared at me. "You know something? I found his phone," I admitted, retrieving it from under the cushion. "He left it here this morning." I shouldn't have looked, but I did. I watched the storm of emotions cross her face. Hope that I was wrong. Fear that I was right. I wanted to shield her from this, my only child, but she deserved the truth. "It's bad, isn't it?" she whispered. I handed her the phone. The passcode is Sophie's birthday. While she read, I went to the kitchen to make tea that neither of us would drink. I heard her gasp, then a curse, then a sound that was unmistakably a sob. When I returned, she was ashen. "Mom," she said, her voice hoarse. "He was sleeping with Mom. My mother and my husband." She couldn't finish the sentence. "For at least 4 years, from what I can tell. And after she died, who is he?" "I think it's Tessa, your cousin." Clara's face contorted with rage. "That, I'll kill them. Both of them." "No." My voice was sharp. "You won't do anything rash. We have to think. Think? Dad, they destroyed our family. Mom betrayed you, betrayed me. And Tessa, she stood pacing. I want a divorce. I want everyone to know what they did. And then what? I asked calmly. David gets half of everything. He might even fight for custody of Sophie. Tessa denies it all. There's no hard proof linking her to you lose your daughter, your money, your dignity, while they just move on. She stopped pacing. So what do? We gather undeniable evidence. We figure out exactly what they're doing. And then, I lean forward, we destroy them. Methodically, in a way they'll never see coming. Clara looked at me, really looked at me, as if for the first time in a long while. I didn't know you had this in you. Neither did I. I confessed. But they hurt my child, and I will not let them get away with it. A knock at the door made us both jump. Mr. Sullivan, a woman's voice called. Detective Morrison, Vermont State Police. I need to ask you a few questions about your wife's death. Clara and I exchanged a look of alarm. The police? I shoved David's phone into Clara's hands. Hide this. Don't let anyone see it. She nodded and vanished down the hall. I smoothed my sweater, took a deep breath, and opened the door. A woman in her 40s stood on my porch, her expression professional and unreadable. I'm sorry to disturb you, Mr. Sullivan. I'm reopening the investigation into your wife's death. New allegations have come to light. Allegations. My voice was steady, a feat of sheer will. My wife died of a heart attack 5 years ago. Yes, sir, she said, pulling out a notebook. But we've received information suggesting her death may not have been for natural causes. Can you tell me who had access to your wife's medication in the weeks before she passed? The world tilted on its axis again. Murder. She was suggesting Eleanor had been murdered. And suddenly, the affair, the secrets, all of it took on a much darker, more sinister meaning. I think, I said carefully, that I should call my lawyer. Detective Morrison offered a thin smile. That's your right, Mr. Sullivan. But I should inform you. The person who made the complaint specifically named you as a person of interest. Detective Morrison sat in my living room, her gaze sweeping over every detail of our home. Clara had returned, her face a mask of composure, playing the role of the concerned daughter. Mr. Sullivan, I need to ask about the days leading up to your wife's death, Morrison began. Specifically, her medications. Eleanor was on 3 prescriptions. I answered, my voice even. For her blood pressure, cholesterol, and a daily baby aspirin. All prescribed by her doctor. Can you tell me who had access to those pills? Just Eleanor and myself. They were in the medicine cabinet. And you administered them? No, Eleanor took her own pills. She was always very independent. I paused, a memory surfacing. Actually, that's not quite right. In the last few months, David would sometimes help her. He used to be a paramedic before he married Clara. Morrison's pen scratched across the page. So your son-in-law had access to her medications. He visited often. He just wanted to be helpful. The words tasted like ash in my mouth. Dad, Clara interjected, her voice strained. Are you suggesting David might have? I'm not suggesting anything, Morrison cut in. Just gathering facts, she turned to Clara. When did your husband start helping with your mother's medication? I don't know. Maybe 6 months before she died, Clara said, looking at me as the terrible realization dawned in her eyes. He said he wanted to make sure she was taking them correctly, that Dad sometimes forgot to remind her. I had never forgotten. Not once. But David had convinced Eleanor I was becoming forgetful. At the time, I'd been grateful for his help as Eleanor's health declined. Now, I saw it as a calculated move. Detective, who filed this complaint? I asked. Who accused me of murdering my own wife? Morrison closed her notebook. The complaint was anonymous, but it contained very specific details. Information about medication changes, arguments between you and your wife, and a financial motive. What financial motive? Clara demanded. My parents were comfortable, but they weren't rich. According to the complaint, your wife had a life insurance policy for $500,000, with you as the sole beneficiary. The room fell silent. I felt Clara's eyes on me. I didn't know about any life insurance policy, I said slowly. Eleanor handled our finances. After she died, I found the usual accounts, but no policy. You didn't receive a payout? No, nothing. Morrison's expression shifted. That's interesting. The complaint states the policy was purchased 3 months before your wife's death, and the premium was paid from your joint account. 3 months before Eleanor died, right when the messages between her and David had become more urgent. I want to see our bank statement from that time, I said. While Morrison watched, Clara and I worked on our laptop, pulling up the records from 5 years ago. And there it was, a payment of $1,200 to an insurance company, dated 3 months before Eleanor's death, categorized as medical expenses. I never authorized this, I said, my voice shaking. I never even saw it. Who else had access to your accounts? Morrison asked. David, Clara said quietly. After Mom's heart attack, he offered to help manage their bills. Dad was overwhelmed. The detective's pen flew across the page. So, your son-in-law had access to your finances, your wife's medication, and he was present on the day she died. We all were, Clara protested. It was a family dinner. Mom collapsed at the table. The paramedics said it was a massive heart attack. But I remembered that dinner with chilling new clarity. David had cooked Eleanor's favorite meal. He had been so attentive, making sure she ate, insisting she take her evening pills early because dinner was late. And I remembered something else. Her pills, I said slowly. That night, Eleanor said her pills looked different. Smaller. David told her the pharmacy must have changed suppliers. Morrison leaned forward. Did you verify that? No. I trusted him. He was a paramedic. Why would I question him? Dad, Clara's voice cracked. Are you saying David killed Mom? I'm saying we need to find out what was in those pills, I replied, looking at Morrison. Is it too late for an autopsy? After 5 years, toxicology would be difficult, but not impossible if we exhume the body, Morrison said, standing. Mr. Sullivan, right now, you are still a person of interest. If you're being framed, we need to find out by whom and why. After she left, Clara and I sat in stunned silence. We need to talk to David, Clara finally said. Confront him. No, I still, my mind racing. If David filed that complaint, if he's setting me up, confronting him will only make him more careful. He'll destroy any remaining evidence. Then what do? We follow him tonight. The message said he was meeting E at the cabin. We need to find out what they're planning. We took Clara's car, leaving mine at the farmhouse. The coordinates led us down winding country roads to a rusted mailbox marking a hidden turnoff. The cabin was small and well-kept, with lights glowing in the windows. That's David's sedan, Clara whispered, pointing, and that's Tessa's car next to it. We crept closer on foot. Through the front window, we could see David and Tessa at a small table, glasses of wine in their hands, looking intimate and relaxed. Clara had her phone out, recording. I can't believe the old fool actually fell for it, Tessa was saying, her voice clear through the thin walls. The detective bought the whole story. Anonymous complaint, specific details, financial motive, David laughed. They'll have him arrested within a week. He's too trusting, Tessa said. Always has been. Even Eleanor said he was naive. How much longer until the insurance pays out? David asked. The policy's contestability period ended years ago. Once they arrest Arthur for Eleanor's murder, the insurer will have to pay the claim to her estate. And I, Tessa said with a smug smile, am the executor of the estate, since her will was never updated. We split it 50-50, David finished. And once Arthur is in prison, I'll file for divorce from Clara, claim emotional distress, and I'll get half of everything she has, plus the insurance money. Clara's hand gripped my arm, her knuckles white. I watched Tessa move behind David's chair, her hands on his shoulders. Using Arthur's paranoia about Eleanor's health, getting him to step back from her medications. That was genius, David said. He was easy to manipulate, Tessa replied. Especially after I told him you were complaining about him, saying you wished he'd hurry up and die. I had never said those things. But Eleanor had become distant and angry in her final months. It wasn't the illness, it was Tessa poisoning her against me. And the pills? David asked. Digoxin, Tessa said. Mixed it with her regular medication for 2 weeks. It built up in her system. Then that night, a final dose in her food. The autopsy showed a heart attack. No one even looked for poison. Until now, David said. It doesn't matter, Tessa scoffed. She has her suspect, Arthur Sullivan, the neglected husband who discovered his wife's affair and decided to cash in. They kissed, and Clara turned away, her face a mask of agony and rage. We had heard enough. We crept back to the car in silence. They killed her, Clara whispered. David murdered my mother, and Tessa helped him, and they're framing me. We take this to the police, Clara said, pulling onto the road. We show them the recording. No, I interrupted. Not yet. That recording was made illegally. A lawyer could get it thrown out. And David's phone. I shouldn't have kept it. They could use that against us. So what do? A cold, hard determination settled in my chest. We make them confess, I said. Properly, legally. We spring a trap. But first, we need to find that insurance money. Because wherever it went, that's where we'll find the final piece of evidence we need to destroy them. We spent the night in my study, surrounded by 5 years of financial records. David was supposedly at his brother's house, but we knew better. Dad, look at this, Clara said, pointing at her laptop screen in the early hours of the morning. It was the life insurance application. Eleanor's signature was at the bottom, but it looked too neat. Her handwriting had always been a hurried, messy scrawl. That's not her signature, I said. Tessa forged it. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Drop the investigation or your granddaughter pays the price. I shot through my veins. Clara, where's Sophie? With David's mother. He took her there yesterday. She saw my face and went pale. What is it? I showed her the message. She immediately called her mother-in-law. She's fine, Clara said, sagging with relief. Still asleep. Another text arrived. Asterisk, we know you were at the cabin. Destroy the recording, or the girl has an accident. You have until tomorrow night, Star. They had seen us. That's it, Clara said, her voice shaking with rage. I'm calling the police. And they take Sophie while the police investigate? I countered. Clara, they're cornered. That makes them dangerous. Then what's your plan? My daughter is being threatened by a murderer. We needed leverage. Something so damning they couldn't threaten us. The insurance money, I said. The policy lists me as the beneficiary. So where did it go? Clara logged into the insurance company's website. The beneficiary had been changed 2 months after Eleanor's death. Not to me, but to a trust, the Eleanor Sullivan Memorial Trust, managed by Tessa Sullivan as trustee. That monster, Clara breathed. She found the trust paperwork, filed as a public record. It gave Tessa sole discretion over all distributions. She controlled the money. She and David were listed as consultants entitled to 40% each, leaving just 20% for Eleanor's actual heirs, Clara and me. An idea, dangerous but necessary, began to form. We drove to a diner and used their Wi-Fi to create an anonymous email account. I sent a message to Tessa's personal email. Asterisk, I know about the digoxin. I know about the insurance fraud. You have 24 hours to transfer $250,000 to the account below, or I go to the police with evidence that David murdered Eleanor. He goes to prison. You go free. Your choice, Star. The response came 90 minutes later as a call to my personal phone. It was Tessa. Arthur, we need to talk. Just you and me. Tomorrow, noon, at the cabin. Come alone, or Clara's daughter disappears. The trap was working, but it was also tightening around us. I'll be there, I told her. No, absolutely not, Clara said when I hung up. You're not going there alone, which is why you're not coming, I interrupted. If something happens to me, you're Sophie's only protection. You need to stay with her. Keep her safe. Dad, listen, I'm going to wear a wire. I'll tell Tessa I'm recording, so it's legal. And I'm going to make her an offer she can't refuse. I'm going to confess to Eleanor's murder. Clara stared at me, horrified. That's insane. A false confession isn't a crime. Once Tessa agrees on tape, once she admits there was a murder, that David poisoned Eleanor, that they committed fraud, then I have them. It's the only way. They've underestimated me my whole life. Let them keep thinking I'm just a naive old man until it's too late. The next morning, I visited Detective Morrison. I told her I'd received threats and was meeting the person responsible. I'll be recording the conversation, legally, I said. If I don't call you by 1 o'clock, something's wrong. I gave her the cabin's address. At 11:30, Clara drove me to a spot half a mile from the cabin and helped me test the small recording device clipped inside my jacket. "Promise me you'll be careful," she pleaded. "I promise. Keep Sophie safe. If this goes wrong, the flash drive is in the gardening book. Give it to the police." I walked the last half mile through the woods. As I approached the cabin, the door opened. Tessa stood there, smiling confidently. Behind her, I saw David sitting at the table. "Arthur," Tessa said warmly. "Come in. We have so much to discuss." I stepped onto the porch, my heart pounding. "Before we start," I said clearly, "I want you both to know I am recording this conversation." Tessa's smile never wavered. "Of course. We have nothing to hide." But as I stepped inside, I saw the cold, triumphant look on David's face, and I realized I'd made a terrible mistake. On the table in front of him sat a gun. "Actually, Arthur," David said softly, "you're not recording anything. That device is jammed. We've been listening to your phone calls for the last day. We know everything you've planned." Tessa closed the door behind me. The lock clicked like a cell door shutting. "Sit down," David ordered. "We have a new proposition for you." I stood in the center of the cabin, my hands steady. Panic was the enemy. They expected fear. I gave them calm curiosity. "How long have you been listening?" "Since yesterday morning," Tessa said, pleased with herself. "We put a tracker on Clara's car. Cloned your phone. We heard every conversation. Watch you plan your little trap. Then I told Detective Morrison where I'd be." I said. "Actually, she's not coming," David interjected. "I called her this morning from your phone. Canceled the meeting. Said you were feeling ill. They had me cornered. Here's what's going to happen," Tessa explained. "You're going to write a confession. You killed Eleanor because you discovered her affair. Then you'll write a suicide note. Grief-stricken, you drove out here and took your own life." "With what?" I asked. David pulled a bottle of my own sleeping pills from his pocket. "We got these from your medicine cabinet yesterday. And if I refuse, then we shoot you and make it look like suicide anyway," Tessa said flatly. "This is just cleaner. Clara knows the truth," I pointed out. "She has David's phone." David corrected. "I remotely wiped it this morning. And that recording you made at the window? Inadmissible, just like you told her. They had thought of everything, or so they believed. Even before Eleanor died, we knew you'd be a problem," Tessa admitted. She was getting sentimental, talking about confessing. She was weak. We couldn't risk it. "Write the confession," David ordered, pushing a pen and paper across the table. I picked up the pen. "Did you ever love Clara?" I asked him. "She was a means to an end," he said with contempt. "Access to your family, to Eleanor. And Eleanor, pathetic," he sneered. "A vain old woman desperate to feel young again." Hearing him speak about my wife, about my daughter, with such cold disdain, solidified my resolve. I began to write, but it wasn't a confession. "I, Arthur Sullivan, being of sound mind, do hereby declare the following." I wrote down everything, keeping them talking, documenting their crimes in my own hand. "Are you almost done?" Tessa asked impatiently. "Almost," I said. Then I made my move. I'd noticed the gun on the table was positioned carelessly. "One last thing," I said, looking up. "You should know I sent a sealed envelope to Eleanor's lawyer 2 days ago. It has everything. Copies of your messages, the financial records, a detailed timeline of the murder." It was a complete lie, but they didn't know that. As uncertainty flickered in their eyes, I lunged, not for the gun, but for the table itself. With a surge of adrenaline, I flipped it. The gun went flying. David stumbled back. I raced for the door, but it was locked. Tessa grabbed me, but I spun, driving my elbow in her stomach. She gasped and released me. David had the gun now, raising it with shaking hands. "Don't move." The window behind him shattered. Clara crashed through it in a spray of glass, tackling David from behind. The gun went off, the bullet lodging in the ceiling. Clara wrestled the weapon from his grasp, her face bleeding, but her grip like iron. "Get outside, Dad," she yelled. Through the broken window, I saw Detective Morrison and 2 other officers running toward the cabin. Tessa tried to bolt, but I stuck out my foot, and she went sprawling. Within seconds, the cabin was full of police. It was over. Rachel and Tom were handcuffed, their protests fading into the official language of arrest. My handwritten testimony was bagged as evidence. Clara's phone showed the new recording she'd made from outside the broken window, capturing every last incriminating word. "You could have been killed," Detective Morrison said, a mix of admiration and exasperation in her voice. "But I wasn't," I said simply. My hand was shaking now, but I was standing. "And now you have everything you need." "The recording is admissible," she confirmed. "Clara was on public property, and you'd already told them you were being recorded. They had no expectation of privacy." I looked at my daughter, my brave, wonderful daughter. "I told you to stay with Sophie." "I took her to the police station first," Clara said, a small grin on her bloody face. "Told Morrison everything. We've been outside for 20 minutes, listening." As they loaded David into a police car, he looked at me with cold fury. "You won't win," he snarled. Tessa was quieter, defeated. "We would have gotten away with it." "No," I said, loud enough for her to hear. "You wouldn't have. You made the same mistake everyone makes. You underestimated an old man." 3 months later, I stood in my kitchen, watching snow blanket the fields Eleanor and I had tended for nearly 50 years. The trials had been swift. Faced with overwhelming evidence, David and Tessa took plea deals. David got 25 years to life for second-degree murder and fraud. Tessa got 15 for being an accessory. The insurance money was recovered and put into a trust for Sophie's education. Clara and Sophie had moved back into the farmhouse with me, and the quiet house was once again filled with life. "Dad," Clara said, walking into the kitchen, "I got a call from David's lawyer. He wants to see Sophie." The audacity was staggering. "What does Sophie want?" I asked. "She never wants to see him again," Clara said, her voice heavy. "But what if she resents me for it later?" "You protect her now," I said, taking her hand. "Whatever David is telling his lawyers, it's a performance." I looked into his eyes in that cabin. There's nothing there but calculation. We sat in silence for a moment. "How are you so calm about all this?" she asked. "Mom cheated on you, lied to you for years." "Oh, I'm furious with her," I admitted, at her weakness, her betrayal. "But I'm also free. Free from the weight of a marriage built on lies. I miss the woman I thought she was, but I don't miss the woman she became." That evening, I finally opened the box of Eleanor's personal effects from the hospital. Underneath her wedding ring, I found a sealed letter, addressed to me in her messy, familiar handwriting. "My dearest Arthur," it read. Asterisk if you're reading this. I'm gone. I've done terrible things. I betrayed you in ways I can't excuse. I started something I couldn't stop. You deserved so much better. I don't expect forgiveness, but I want you to know you were never the problem. The problem was always me. My cowardice, my selfishness. You are a remarkable man, Arthur. Stronger than I ever was. I'm sorry I wasn't the woman you believed I was, Star." Tears blurred the words. Not tears of grief, but tears for the waste of it all. The letter was a kind of closure, but it changed nothing. I had a farm to run, a granddaughter to help raise, and a daughter to support. I had a life to rebuild, not from the ashes of betrayal, but on the foundation of the truth I had fought so hard to find. David had called me an old man as if it were an insult. He learned too late that age means experience. It means patience. It means knowing when to fight and when to wait. I was 70 years old. I had survived betrayal and murder plots. I had brought down a killer. I was old, yes, but old meant I was dangerous in ways youth could never comprehend, and I would never be underestimated again. A text from Clara came through from the other room. Asterisk, "Thank you, Dad, for fighting for us. I love you, Star." I smiled, typing back. Asterisk, "I love you too. Now get some sleep. Tomorrow, we start rebuilding, Star. Because that's what survivors do. We adapt. We overcome. We rebuild on stronger foundations." The farmhouse settled into a peaceful silence around me. I was wounded, yes, and forever changed, but I was free. And in that freedom, I finally found peace.